With the way that man was slurping on the cards that had people trapped inside, I feel like if even Chris Hansen would have seen that, he wouldn't have told that man to take a seat. He would have left and drove away. That's how disturbing that was. It got to a point where I thought to myself, damn, in a season with the ReZero Archbishops and their crazy tongues and actions, the fact that you can make them look fairly sane, because it wasn't like they just did it one time. With everyone trapped in these playing cards, his foot-long tongue, it was like Venom was standing in front of us. But this Venom should have been on to catch a predator, and he just kept... I really gotta ask, what was that man doing with the cards when the camera wasn't rolling? Thank God for our girl blowing them the hell out of there, because Jesus, that dude had some issues. And while that scene was definitely questionable, I would actually argue this was fairly a normal episode, probably one of the most normal functioning episodes. Like, if anything, there's it had a plot line of, okay, Power Rangers meets villain of the week, and, here's this, sort of emotional story given the connection that our new girl has with this guy. But it wasn't like the craziest whiplash, you're gonna leave laughing every other scene. But it was a good episode, but it was actually fairly normal, which I think makes the creepy tongue scene all the more disturbing because that it was just such a WTF and then okay, normal Power Rangers episode. I'm watching you. It was interesting. Of course, if you want to see my full thoughts, though, support my work. We have the Patreon, full look at live reactions, available exclusively over there if you're so interested. So, the more they're building up with everything, the more concerned I am that this girl's not going to be traveling with us when this is all said and done. I was really hoping so, but I almost feel like she will be left to, do her queenly duties or whatever else you want to call them. But if we can save this guy and he kind of takes over for a bit while she comes tagging along with us, maybe that's possible. Either way, there's actually this really nice moment with the mask. So we know that she had she was a very different character when we first met her. She's very stern, I'm gonna throw hands, I'm gonna defend my place, and then she's just super cute and innocent outside of that. Turns out it was a lot different when she was younger. So I love the idea that when these two first met, she had one of the masks on, and she was just very she would shut people out. She didn't show emotion. She very much pushed him away. And as she was sleeping on top of one of the giant cactus homes, the mask fell down and she freaked out. And I love how immediately when she puts on the devil ogre looking mask, she expresses anger. The idea that she has such a hard time expressing emotions, and each of the different masks and their facial expressions when she wears it gives her kind of the courage to be able to express it. It's pretty cute, I gotta admit, and honestly, their dynamic, it felt like they were two peas in a pod. That would have been a happy marriage or something. I don't know, just whatever you wanted to do with that dynamic, it would have worked. But the idea of just some dude meeting up with this girl, thought we're building into a loving connection, and then this man in his pursuit of unifying the world ended up getting corrupted, as we see by the horrible crystals. And honestly, it's a little worse than normal given the fact that he now has our girl's transformation objects, and yeah, he's putting up a mean fight. They did answer a question though I had last week, which was, so usually what happens is during the mid slate of the episode where it's okay, cut to commercial, but here's some info, character sheet. One of her transformation coins was camel, and I really was I guess it makes sense to have a camel in the desert, but why would you need a camel? What good is a camel gonna do? And then they show us what good it will do. A camel dirt bike. Gotta admit, that's the best transportation we've seen in the show to date. And I gotta admit, if I was Red, I'd be a little jealous that she has a camel dirt bike. I'm sure at his point of view, his Megazord is cooler, but I disagree. I think her bike is way cooler. Also, she has Spirit Coffin. What is Spirit Coffin? A pyramid that you launch on your enemies, pointy end first. I guess it makes sense. A pyramid technically couldn't act as a coffin overall. I don't know, everything about her fighting style and her design is my favorite thing we've seen in the show. It helps that I like Egyptian mythologies and I like the idea of just the designs of things in Egyptian culture. But man, if I saw Red doing half the shit she does, I'd be oh, that's funny, cringy Power Rangers doing their thing. You slap an Egyptian theme to it though with her and I just like it more. I don't know. I hope she tags along with us. I think she does offer a fun dynamic that is different than the other characters, but blends in with them just as well. If we don't at least see them all get into the Zord together at least once, though, that will be a major disappointment because, goddamn, there's an empty podium right there whenever they all do get in it. So let's do that. I gotta admit, though, either our boy's gun is incredibly effective. I mean, he loves to point that thing. Like, that's his, like, go-to every time. You'd swear he's an American the way he points it at the camera half the time. But he shoots, like, a bunch of mummies in the chest, like, one shot, and they go down. I don't know what these mummies are made of, but it's pretty pathetic, because even with zombies, I mean, usually the zombies, you gotta at least blow off their head, and even then, they might still try to come at you. These zombies are getting, like, pushed away, and they're falling over like they're dead. I'm like, you guys have no organs to begin with. What the hell is actually killing you here? Like, why can't you get back up? But maybe it's like a spirit thing? I don't know, but it was silly. The best part, surprisingly for me, though, of this episode was actually the backstory. And for the most part, the thing I've enjoyed about the show the most has been its absolute ridiculousness and silliness and how it just goes over the top and becomes an almost parody. But yeah, I actually really liked what they did with her backstory in relation to this guy. He's not coming across as generically evil, I need to conquer the world, I was wronged because this or that. It's just simply, it seems, a situation of he had good interests in mind, a power attached to him, warped part of his view, made him think he's still pursuing things in a just way, and unfortunately we're at a point where someone could actually die because of initially good intentions, but clearly got warped in the pursuit of power in the idea of trying to help others. I think they can save him, in theory anyway. My big question is, what do they do after this arc is over? And honestly, given the fact that I think it's the first time, maybe the second time, because usually when he summons his big boy, they're already put together. He only summoned the dinosaur version this time. I think it's because that was one of the pieces of his Zord, if I'm not mistaken. Unless that's just a separate thing he used this time, but I would kind of like to see more of just bits and pieces doing their thing more often, because I think the only other time I can recall one being used is when he flew to save Ydra, or not save her, but, you know, when she stormed out because it looked like Red wasn't taking her side. He did the bird one. So I think the bird and the dinosaur are the only two we've seen separate, but maybe I'm misremembering. But either way, I want to see more of them separate, because I ain't gonna lie, them separated is actually kind of cooler than them combined, but then again, I used to think that as a kid anyway, so I guess I'm just consistent in that opinion. Either way, though, I really enjoyed this episode for how lack of funny it was compared to other episodes, but I enjoyed what they did with the backstory. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell. Like I mentioned, we got the full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Brian Gonzalez, Cody Tiffany, Torvak, Joseph Shirley, Andrew Lau, Soakin the Lurker, and we also have Levy GR. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. You all have a good one.